Welcome back to MyMyTV.com. I'm Steve Lehto. We are at the 2022 Pure Michigan Governor's Conference on Tourism, the Grand Traverse Resort and Spa, talking to all kinds of great people from all kinds of wonderful places. And one of my favorite places in Michigan, it's a little bit away from the bigger cities, but it's the Gilmore Car Museum near Hickory Corners. And with me right now is Ken Fischang, who's the Director of Commercial Operations. I've been to the museum many times. I love cars. And that kind of explains why I like that place. Tell me a little bit about the museum.
Well, Steve, we're the largest car museum in North America. We have 90 acres, 29 buildings, 7 partner museums now. We just added a 7th partner museum, plus the Gilmore Collection, so it's like coming to 8 museums in one.
Okay.
We've got over 220,000 square feet of indoor event and exhibit space, as well as over 400 vehicles in all of our galleries. It's an amazing place.
Okay, so 400 vehicles scattered throughout a bunch of different buildings. They often refer to the Red Barn, and this is in like a farm setting out in the country a little ways.
Yes. Also, we have our dealership row where the buildings are built architecturally just like they would have been when they were open selling cars. We have our Ford dealership, our Cadillac LaSalle dealership, our Lincoln dealership, and Franklin dealership as well. And then many of the buildings on the campus are original red barns from farms in southwest Michigan that Don Gilmore went and found and bought the buildings, brought them there, and had them rebuilt on the property as he expanded his car collection.
And I've been there quite a few times, and I'm telling you that right now, if you've got a nice summer day, there's nothing more fun than going to a car museum where you can occasionally walk between the different buildings outside in the country. You're away from the hustle and bustle of the crowd. But all of the cars, and I have to mention, because I've got a soft spot in my heart for a couple cars you guys have got out there. You guys have got a Tucker.
We do.
Along with the Tucker, you have a whole bunch of stuff on display, including a Tucker engine, and I believe a bunch of stuff from Tucker's own personal office, and a Tucker gas pump, and all kinds of other Tucker memorabilia, because he built the cars, but also there's a bunch of other stuff that came along with the company.
Yes, yeah, we do. Our Tucker is really special. It's number 47. Of 51 that were built, and it is the lowest mileage Tucker in the world. It only has 63 miles on it.
Wow. And you also have on display another vehicle. It's a Chrysler Turbine Car, and I know
Correct.
that's on loan from the Detroit Historical Society, and there are only 9 of them left in the world.
Correct.
And so if you want to see one, you often got to go way out of your way to find it. But the fact that you guys have got one of each of those cars has always made it to where any chance I get, I go on out to the Gilmore.
Yeah, it's a special car. I mean, Chrysler thought it would be a good idea to put a jet engine in a car in 1963, and it cost them about $50,000 for each car that they built. So no one could afford to pay that for a car in 1963. So instead, they came up with a program where 203 lucky families got to have a free jet car in your driveway for 3 months, and all they had to do is report back to Chrysler about the car on like a weekly basis. So, yeah, it's a special car.
And at the end of that project, they logged more than 1 million miles, relatively trouble-free. And I've actually spoken to a bunch of people who worked in that program, including some of them were out at the Gilmore one day when you guys first got the vehicle, and I was out there at that time. And I know that the Gilmore does a lot of special events like that around certain types of cars or certain eras of cars.
Yes.
And one of the things that always amazes me about the Gilmore is every time I turn around, I spot something. I'm like, really? And you guys, for instance, had a Scarab.
We did for a while, yes.
Yeah. And the Scarab was 20 feet from the Tucker. And I remember there's only a handful of Scarabs in the world, too.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at the Tucker going, I love this car. I've written a book about this car. But there's a Scarab. And it was, and so if you're into cars, it probably couldn't be done in a day. It'd probably take a couple of days to get through there.
There's a reason why we sell a 2-day pass. Yeah, and also we have some new exhibits as well. This is the 100th year of Checker Motors.
Yeah.
So we have in our carriage house an exhibit of vintage Checkers, as well as we'll be celebrating at our Red Barn Spectacular. First Saturday of August, we'll have a whole Checker section for that. We also have an early Ford exhibit, first 50 years of Ford, 1903 to 53 in the Campagna barn. In addition, we have Greatest Generations Corvettes in our main gallery. And then our motorcycle barn completely went through a complete renovation and almost double in size, and that just opened this week.
Wow.
as well. So there's a lot of new things happening out at the Gilmore, too.
And what's the connection with Michigan and Checker Cab?
Checker Motors was the longest continuously privately owned car manufacturer in the U.S., and they were based in Kalamazoo, and they built cars from the early 1920s to 1982. And we have part of the Checker display is a car that the museum owns. It's the last Checker off the assembly line in 1982.
And I know that Checker Motors is an unusual vehicle because of the fact that they were often used for cabs. I remember a couple families when I was growing up where the family had somehow gotten one of those and was using it as a daily family driver. Yeah. And they were renowned for the fact that they would run forever.
Yes, very trouble-free. We have, obviously, cabs, Checker Marathons. We have a Checker Aerobus, which was a huge 6-door station wagon that's out on display, too, as part of that. And also there's several other companies like Hanley Knight and Dort, where part of that car was built in the Checker factory as well in Kalamazoo.
Okay. And so the Gilmore Car Museum, I know it's Hickory Corners is what we always say. Right. Where is Hickory Corners in relationship to, say, I-94 or Kalamazoo or the other cities in the area?
Well, we're almost equidistant from Kalamazoo and Battle Creek, and it's about 20 minutes from Battle Creek and Kalamazoo, and then about 35 minutes from Grand Rapids.
Okay.
So we're kind of right in between there. We're in beautiful southwest Michigan with the rolling hills and crystal clear lakes, and it's just the perfect place for people to be able to come out and drive their classic car out to the museum. We also have a program called Ride the Classics, Tuesdays through Fridays, starting in the first Tuesday of May through the end of September, and we'll bring out some of our cars. We have about another 150 cars in our climate-controlled storage, and we'll bring out some classic cars and take people for rides around the property in them, too.
And just in case some of the car guys in the audience missed that one statistic you said earlier, there are 400 cars in the collection.
400 vehicles. That includes motorcycles,
okay.
trucks, cars, everything, yes. And then also, if you haven't seen the new Classic Car Club of America Museum, they underwent a huge expansion, added 11,000 square feet, as well as a complete renovation. It is just a phenomenal, brand new museum there for the classic cars, focusing on cars from 1915 up to 1948.
And I know that just like a lot of other museums, you guys have stuff beyond just cars and motorcycles. I remember walking through a building and you had a whole collection of pedal toys. And
we do.
I spent about an hour photographing them. It was unexpected. I'm like, pedal toys, but they were so cool. And you remember that time when those were common, and they're actually built out of metal. You know,
yes.
They weren't these plastic things they make now. And it's so cool that somebody's actually gone out of their way to collect these and curate them and put them on display as part of this museum.
Well, and we also allow kids, we have an area fenced off outdoors called Pedalville, where the kids can jump in the pedal cars and ride them around as well. That's
wow.
a pretty popular activity for families, along with our Red Barns Raceway. The very first slot car track was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and we have a state-of-the-art track. It's just amazing in one of our original barns on the farm that people can come, big people and little people can come and have lots of fun slot car racing as well.
Wow. I actually spent a lot of time slot car racing in a place called Tiny Tim's in Birmingham, Michigan, back in the late 60s, early 70s, at good times. But there's also a lot of events that you guys do where you encourage people to bring their cars. And because the museum is basically a big, huge farmyard area, you encourage people to bring their classic cars out and park them and display them and walk around, and they're often themed, like Mopars at the Red Barns.
Correct. We have our car show season kicks off with the David Beakey Ford and Mustang show, the first Saturday in May, and we go every weekend right through mid-October. We have everything in addition to car shows. We have our vintage motorcycle weekend in June. We have the vintage boat and vintage travel trailer rally on May 14th. And so there's also, we brought back our tractor show on July 29th and 30th. So there's a car show or a vehicle show for almost anybody. We have our Ultimate Truck Show, which is featuring Jeeps this year on September 10th. And then we do with our Deutschmark's partner, we have Oktoberfest celebration in October with an all-German car cruise to see the fall colors.
Wow.
I don't want to talk about fall yet because we're still focused on spring.
That's years away.
Yes. Yeah.
But the last time I was there was one of the Mopar events, and I saw in one row a whole bunch of cars. I saw a guy who had a USAC, actually raced in USAC Superbird, and also next to it was a Daytona Charger, I believe, with a Hemi and an automatic. Really, really strange combination. I'm like, I've never seen one before, but where else are you going to see it but at a place like this where you get that many people from that far around all bringing their cars to one location, and it's all people of a kindred spirit.
It is, and another show that we're really excited about this year is we're partnering with McCacken, the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals that do their big show in November in Chicago.
Yeah.
They're going to do the McCacken Muscle Car Meetup. That's happening June 25th, and it will be our largest muscle car show ever, and all of the proceeds are going to go to build our new Muscle Car Museum, which is one of the two projects that we have for future growth on our historic campus.
Yeah, and I'm now realizing the cars I grew up admiring as a child are now becoming so expensive that they're going to become museum pieces. Yeah. And it used to be when I was younger, I'd go, well, there's a Duesenberg, that belongs in a museum. Yeah. Now when I see a Superbird, I don't think that belongs in a museum, but I guess it's right around the corner, right?
Yeah, it's, and the one thing that's really cool about, for example, Mopars or Camaros, Mustangs, Corvettes, we welcome all years to shows. So we're bringing in a whole new demographic into the muscle car and sports car ownership, before, which you can't always do with some of the older marks. This is a way to really attract a whole new demographic to the museum to get out there to enjoy our beautiful cars and characters.
Right. Well, Ken Fischang is the Director of Commercial Operations at the Gilmore Car Museum, one of my favorite places in Michigan. If you haven't been there, I encourage you to get out there and visit. If you have been there, get on up there because there's probably more stuff since the last time you were there. Yep. 400 cars, including, like I said, a Tucker and a Turbine car. And anytime you put two of them in the same place, I got to visit once in a while just to make sure they're still doing okay.
Yes.
So thank you for coming on out to the 2022 Pure Michigan Governor's Conference on Tourism. I'm talking too fast. At the Grand Traverse Resort and Spa. And we'll be right back after this.